What's going on, guys? My name is Jack. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Lion's Den, and today, joining me, good friend. You can find him over on Twitch streaming most days, Furly707. How you doing?
What's up?
Not much, man. We're here today to talk about PUBG and Fortnite, the two arguably most popular Battle Royale games currently. And obviously, all we pretty much saw in 2017, if you had to sum up gaming, was the rise of BR as a genre. And now we're moving into 2018, we're obviously going to see more titles coming along, but right now, it's kind of just, it's Fortnite versus PUBG in terms of what's drawing the most attention over on Twitch and on YouTube. And since both of us have played a lot of both games, you've obviously streamed both games pretty heavily, I thought we'd take a chance to sit down today, compare and contrast both games, and see which one, at least for right now, as at the time of recording, is like the best game to be playing. Obviously, I think we're just going to start off with PUBG, because I think there's going to be the most to talk about there, because personally, I'm not really that big on PUBG. I mean, how do you feel about it?
I personally like the game, honestly. I mean, the only problem, there's a lot of problems with the game, except, you know, it's fun. It's a more competitive BR. It's a more try-hard, in my opinion, but there's a lot of things that are rushing on this game.
Right. I mean, I think the one thing that's always stood out to me is that it's trying so hard to be like the ultra competitive, like the esports ready battle royale game. But I feel like in doing that, it feels like the development is almost going against that philosophy, because it feels like they're messing up the very basic things like optimization and good server registration and just having the game function on a basic level. It feels like they're really dropping the ball on that if they're trying to make this like this ultra competitive game.
Well, they don't have a stability, and there's no consistency in the game. I mean, you're seeing a lot of people, big-time streamers, and even in competitions, people dropping from servers still, and still having crashing issues, desync issues. Like, buildings not loading in, weapons not loading in time. Like, you can't have that in an esports situation when everybody's dropping around and it's supposed to be a fair scenario.
Yeah, no, you can't, and I think it's like, it almost feels like they're so caught up in the hype themselves, because even though it's the most popular game in the world right now, you know, by a long stretch, it's still very much an indie game in terms of its development team size. And I feel like with the amount of money they must have access to as a studio, the fact that they aren't, you know, bringing in more people, bulking things up, and trying to fix the base issues that have been around since launch, is a little bit of a disturbing thought when already you're asking $30 for a game that is very much still in beta, and now you're trying to push not only this like esport tournament form, but you're also trying to push like the microtransactions as well. It just seems like their goals are not focused enough for what they're trying to get out of the game. And when I play it, I find myself frustrated, because I feel like just the barrier to entry to get the game to work is so ridiculously high that it's just a disappointment in its current state.
Yeah, but I mean, you can take a look at what is the guy, the player unknown. He was with Daybreak back then with H1Z1, right?
Yeah.
And they got bought up with PlayStation, and the game went to shit. And PlayStation dropped it, but before then he left because he didn't like the way that what they were doing to that game. So I probably guarantee you that's the reason why he's trying to stay away from any big developers to help them, and they're staying indie and staying in. And they're going to keep having issues because they're staying indie and don't have, god damn it, have the backing for all that.
Right. But I mean, at the same time, you can stay indie while still trying to absorb more talent into your team. You don't need a partnership to increase your staff. When you have a game that holds 3 million concurrent players at any given time, your profit margins at that point have to be ridiculous. Like, yes, yeah, game development's expensive, but there's no fucking way that they haven't made a fucking dime and a half off PUBG. It continues to be the highest selling game on Steam. So you have to be able to increase your development team, you have to be able to take in other talent, and it feels like they're either like, they're not willing to, or they are, but there's still like just this basic incompetency with every update, especially with them trying to push the console and like that whole, they're technically in full release now. Like, I feel like that whole move in general was really bad. They should not have pushed this game to full release. It was not nearly ready.
It's not ready at all. There's no fucking way. I mean, they even pushing it on Xbox is way too early. That should be at least another 6 months away before they even had early access on that. That's just being greedy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
The game can't even run properly. They can't even load in proper textures in a game. How is that enjoyable?
Yeah, I don't know. And the thing is like, especially even on PC, you have to have such a very high minimum requirement just in terms of your hardware to be able to enjoy the game.
Well, I have a 1080 Ti and I still have all my settings on low so I can crack over 100, 140 frames. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, like the game is so horribly unoptimized. If you don't have either like an amazingly high RPM hard drive or an SSD, you know, I think you need minimum like a 3.3 or 3.3 and above gigahertz processor on top of a high-end graphics card just to enjoy the game at a very basic level. You're cutting off a large majority of your audience just for the simple fact that a lot of people can't afford to build systems that expensive. Not to mention with the fact that, you know, kind of as an aside, the computer hardware market's been pretty inflated the last couple months. So like,
it's too expensive to build a PC right now.
Yeah, it is. It's way too expensive. So you think that with the current climate, it would be doubly important before you focus on major content updates to make sure your game functions. And the game has never functioned correctly. There's still issues. There's always been issues with the game. And like the worst part about it for me is that if I had to put Fortnite and PUBG together like against each other, which we are, I think there's more potential with PUBG overall than there is with Fortnite. And
for a competitive sense, yes.
Yeah, or just overall, I think the potential is there, and they're squandering it because of this this basic incompetency with the development.
I mean, mind you, yeah, we're shitting on the game a lot, but there's still a lot of pros to the game as well, too.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yes, I think they're still caught up in the whole entire storm of the game. And, one sec. Still think they're caught up in the storm of the game, and they're just convoluted by the money in the situation that's going on. Yeah, I mean, and you're right. There are definitely a lot of things to look at PUBG, and you're like, wow, okay, this is cool. I mean, obviously, I think they made the biggest strides forward to pretty much just kill H1Z1 where it stood in terms of having the customizable weapons with the attachments, the ability to, you know, properly aim down sights. You know, they were the first BR game to get the first-person only mode, which we've been wanting in H1Z1 for years. And when the game works, it is fun. I will give you that. It's fun, it's interesting, and there's a lot to grasp there, and it feels like a game, you know, like you would want out of a competitive game. There's a lot to work towards. There's a high skill ceiling. Like, mastering the game is legitimately difficult. But at the same time, I feel like if you're going for like a competitive esport, it feels like BR as a game style doesn't really work with what you want out of an esport, which is something that's consistent and allows for the top level players to, you know, be able to work at their craft in such a way to master it, because there's so much inherent luck involved in terms of whether you are going to win a Battle Royale game versus like winning a game of Counter-Strike. You know what I mean? Yes and no. There's not a whole lot of luck, but there is. I mean, knowing the map and knowing the high risk situations, you can always plan your shit accordingly and strategize against that, or with your drops. So I mean, there is, in a sense, in esports there for it, but I think there should be a mode that they tweak specifically for it. So they have an esports mode where it is a little bit more consistent. You know, take some of the little needless loot out. Like, there shouldn't be clothes dropping to clutter the server. That's one huge thing. Get rid of the clothes. Like, why are clothes dropping? If you got rid of that, the server would run better. For instance, get rid of, like, scrap random pistols. You know, have one standard pistol that's there for the esports mode. There's, you know, like, Counter-Strike has the matchmaking for when you want to take it serious, and casual mode. Casual PUBG, esports mode. There should be something like that. Yeah, I think so. And beyond that, if you want to talk game modes, I don't know how you can expect players to logically be able to practice a game when you're rolling the dice whether you're going to get X amount of weapons or X amount of meds every match. The fact there's no like death match or some kind of warm-up mode, like, that is so insanely lacking in a lot of Battle Royale games as a whole. I mean, you know, obviously I was watching you stream Islands of Nine last night, and the fact they got like that gun game thing in the beginning is a brilliant fucking idea. Like, you need some kind of arena mode where you can go in and not have to worry about, okay, I need to invest 20 minutes to drop into a match and find guns and hope I find the right gun so I can practice with my M16 or whatever. You know, even not just for the high level players, but new players need an opportunity to get familiar with the weapons, and oftentimes with how fast you die or how random the spawns can be,
you don't get sufficient time to actually practice certain things to try and get better.
Well, that's what the one other thing too about Islands. They actually added a gun range too, so you could literally go in there, go into a lobby and gun range, and pick up any gun and practice it right there on the spot.
Yeah.
There needs to be that mode. If you wanted to optimize your servers, I get how they did it in PUBG. They split the servers and took the guns out to make it better. Why don't you just make your servers better? Why don't you make the game better? Why don't you make that mode for shooting a mode before servers? Like on an isolated server like Islands of Nine does. So I can do that on my own. No problem. I can get used to this gun, learn how the recoil is. When I drop down, I know how to use the weapon that's here available in front of me now.
Yeah, and you know, like stuff like private matches, all that stuff is just like, these are just kind of norms if you want to give teams and individual players the opportunity to be able to practice. And if you can't even add like a deathmatch mode, there should at least be private matches where like I can go in and configure a custom server by myself, just drop in like, you know, in a part of the map, grab a gun, and just start practicing. Like those things.
There are custom servers. I don't know how to set them up myself, so I can't really say much on that.
Right, I don't know if you can make them private or not. I don't know enough about that either, but it just seems like they're so focused on just the battle royale aspects. They're not adding like the support pillars that'll make battle royale, you know, more seamless. On top of the fact that, you know, as we've already said, you know, ad nauseum, that the game just needs to function better. And I think going forward that you're going to start seeing some of that hype fall away. Eventually that hype's going to run out, and people are going to look at PUBG and realize how incomplete of a picture it is. And when you're asking $30 for a game, you know, people are going to start putting their money elsewhere, especially when you look at Fortnite, and we'll transition a little bit into Fortnite now. Fortnite, you know, since it's released its battle royale, has been well optimized. It's had good server support, except, you know, for the last couple patches, but we'll talk about that. It's had good hit reg, and it's had an interesting premise that's legitimately differentiated itself from other battle royale games. So you look at that game that has no barrier to entry, it's free, it's going to run better on every single system, including console, and how would you not go and play that unless you just didn't like the style of Fortnite?
Well, the only deterrent that a lot of people have to Fortnite, and it's a huge one, is the building aspect. They get, so I don't know how to build. I don't like the game because they die right away to it, or somebody that builds up a rant and shits on them. I get that, but if you want to do it, go hop into a forest area, go practice, chop shit down, go learn how to build. It's a different game with the same element. You can't go into it expecting the same exact gameplay from a different game.
Right. And I think that is the single thing that makes Fortnite just so different and so interesting to me, is how they've decided to implement building as a flow of combat. Because obviously now you have this whole added layer to just looting and getting guns and getting ready to fight people, because on a basic level, yeah, you can just be in the open and gunfight your way to victory. But at the higher level, in the later stages of the game, against better players, you need to learn how to build if you want to succeed, because they're going to be people who are going to build that giant base on the hill. They're going to rocket you from all angles. They're going to build on top of you. They're going to use all of the tools at their disposal to win. And if you want to get really good at Fortnite, it's absolutely essential to understand your building and understand what to build where, you know, how to put up like panic walls when you're in the open to protect yourself. There's so much more nuance into being really good at Fortnite than a lot of other battle royale games, in my opinion, that makes it really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's not just a strictly run and gun game.
Right. And
but they, like I said, I mean, they have it already well optimized. It's a free-to-play game. I put more money into a free-to-play game than I have into a game I bought, because the skins are actually fun to get. You know, choose and select what you want to get from it. You don't have to play a random roll of the dice with your money with buying keys. You can be like, oh, I want that. I'm going to put $10 in it and buy it. I get that. You know, not everybody likes that. You know, they don't want to do it, but it doesn't change your gameplay. So don't do it then.
No, it doesn't.
It's free.
It's 100% free, and the developers have been so on top of the ship. Like, if PUBG is looking incompetent in terms of its development, Fortnite's like setting the standard for how to develop a video game right now, because they are super involved, constant communication, there are patches all the time, bug fixes, everything. They are so on top of it, and they understand their community. They understand what the game is. PUBG is super serious, whereas Fortnite does not take itself seriously. It's got a very cartoony art style, it's got, dab emotes, it's got dancing, there's a grenade that makes you dance. There's so much, like, fun and interesting in Fortnite because they've set up their entire game to be fun and interesting from the beginning, that they can do all this wacky and weird shit to really differentiate themselves. And on top of that, they are committed to keeping the game truly free to play. Like, you don't have to spend a dime on Fortnite to get everything out of it. Nothing that would give you any kind of advantage is locked out by some kind of paywall. And then to know that it's getting constantly updated, they're constantly adding new stuff, they're still optimizing the game, even though it already runs fantastically. And it got the console first, and it runs great on console from what I understand. Like, it's almost like a masterclass in terms of how you should handle game development.
They actually, yeah, they have the backbone for it. But the thing is about their game too, you got to realize, for instance, the cartoon aspect. They have that element to it, so it makes it so not as a heavy of a game. PUBG has the whole realistic outlook. They also have vehicles. They also have the the territorial explosions and stuff like that. So their game is a lot heavier as far as, mechanics and servers and coding, what they're running and everything. I get that. But don't rush the game. Fortnite developed a game, didn't rush it, actually nailed it with it, and they're on top of the issues. Yeah, it may be an error for a couple weeks, but it's not a game-breaking error. Yeah, you're not getting 100% dropped all the time. I may be dropped from Fortnite twice out of ever playing it, besides today's mistakes. And PUBG, in one day stream, I've dropped probably six times.
Yeah, and on top of that, even though it's a third-person only shooter, and they don't really have plans to add in first-person because it doesn't really fit with the whole style and flow of the game. Normally, I'm not a big fan of third-person shooters, but even just the shooting mechanics all work very well, and I think they've approached balance in a very interesting way. Like, I think, you look at other Battle Royale games, and usually snipers are kind of like a hot-button issue because snipers can be so game-changing and so powerful. I feel like, in terms of balance with some of the later game weapons, they've handled it really well because, take the bolt-action sniper, for instance. Really powerful, really strong, but every other weapon in the game is hit scan, but the snipers have travel time, and then the bolt-action only has one shot on the mag and a pretty slow reload. So there's a total trade-off if you want to snipe, because if you don't hit your shot, you're totally exposed. It's hard to hit that shot in the first place, but if you can become effective with it, now you gain yourself an edge. It's really interesting in comparison that, like, a lot of the weapons in PUBG feel pretty equal to each other, and there's only like small and nuanced differences. But if you have a Kar 98 versus some dude who got an AWM, that's a very difficult fight to win because AWM is straight up just better with very few drawbacks compared to the Kar. So I like how they've approached the balance.
Yeah, I'm normally a first-person shooter type of person myself. I normally don't like third-person. I don't play PUBG at all because it's too easy. Yeah. Fortnite, it is a lot easier, give it more element, yeah, but some balance to it. I think it is because of the zoom in on the gun. The building makes you feel more immersed, and that's why I like the first person. Is I'm more immersed in it. The building aspect makes me feel that too. So that kind of probably is the reason why I don't mind the third person. But the only gripe I have, and which we're working on testing out and changing, is this bloom. Other than that, like, the shooting is actually really fun, well balanced. It's really scaled between weapons that you can choose from a gray to a blue to or gray, green, blue, purple, gold, whatever options are available for that weapon. You can really notice the difference in the gameplay. But if you can get better with the lower tier guns, the moment you pick up a better gun, you're gonna immediately tear apart with it.
Yeah, and then it's not like end game loot is specifically allocated to airdrops like it is in PUBG. Like, you can't just find an AWM in the world, right? But you can find, if you're lucky enough, pretty much everything that's in not only the chest but also in the airdrops in the world, which I think is interesting because now it's not like, because there's only like a couple airdrops that spawn in a game of PUBG usually. There's normally like 3 or 4. There are a ton of airdrops in Fortnite. There's hundreds of chests everywhere. So the loot is more evenly dispersed to that, when you're running in squads. I think there's a big problem with PUBG is that running in squads is really difficult in terms of like actually getting enough gear for everybody. But in Fortnite, you play it right, everybody can have endgame loot and have enough materials to build up, and then it makes like the whole squad aspect a lot more enjoyable. And actually, team fighting in Fortnite I find to be extremely enjoyable and a lot of fun. Whereas if I'm playing PUBG, I'm probably going to run solos or duos because it can just be such a pain in the ass to run with more than 2 people.
I don't prefer squads at all in PUBG. I hate it. It's absolutely chaotic. People are so limited. You're always having to disperse shit. You're trying to split things up so everybody has it evenly. Where in Fortnite, every once in a while, it's like, oh yeah, do you need some rounds? Oh yeah, here you go. Everybody else is able to get weapons that work just as well, if not better than in others, of course, but just as evenly, so easily too. We're not sitting there having to say, oh, I need a weapon, I need this, all I have is a pistol, oh, I need this. No, here, I need a jelly, here, I don't need a vest, oh, I don't need a helmet. It's a lot more broken down and simplified so people can get into the gameplay better.
Yeah, it's not just simplified to the point where it's like it's dumb easy. It's simplified to the point that when it gets down to like the final moments of gameplay, like the final circle, and when you're in those gunfights, that really, besides like some issues with the bloom like we were talking about, it really is who is the better player that's going to win. And even, you know, at the time of recording this video, they're going to start working on massive changes to how the weapon system works. And one of the only issues I even have with Fortnite is that the random spread on assault rifles is a bit infuriating, because it's hard to tell, you know, whether I lost that gunfight because I missed or the game missed for me. So if they implement a system that's more rewarding towards people with the ability to aim and control the rifles, you know, I would look at Fortnite and say there's nothing legitimately wrong with the game at that point. I would have no gripes with it. And even that one gripe is small, and a lot of it is just I'm too used to how other games play and I could adapt myself better to the current system to play better. So that's just me, to a certain extent, being bad. So realistically, it's hard for me to find fault with Fortnite.
There's not much to it other than, you know, the minor errors that any game would have. Like, you know, random patches they need to fix, somebody being able to get underneath the map. Oh, well, a little game-breaking error that is able to get patched and fixed. I'm not constantly dropping. The map's not loading in materials. I can't walk through a building. A bridge isn't randomly just disappearing and my car drives into it and blows up. I'm not going to bump into my buddy and just get flung halfway across the map and die. It's just, the mechanics, the whole core of the actual game is fun. It's not clunky, not a lot of errors, and it's free.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, honestly, I really feel like the biggest mistake PUBG did was when Fortnite first announced this Battle Royale, they kind of shut out Epic Games and tried to like make it some kind of controversy that Epic Games was like copying PUBG or some shit. And I thought that whole thing was such like a media dumpster fire that I feel like now, because PUBG is using the Unreal Engine, which Epic Games obviously develops, I feel like they've essentially closed off the door of the guys who clearly understand the engine well enough to make a competing game that works on a fundamental level so much better than your own, that now your game is going to suffer because you don't have the added benefit of those people being willing to help you because you've burned those bridges. And
yeah, they shot themselves in the foot. Look, Fortnite wasn't coming in to look to steal your money. They offered a free game. If somebody wants to buy your game, they're going to buy your game. They're going to play a free alternative to try it out and play it. Don't get me wrong, when Fortnite first came out, I didn't like it. There was so many, it was so clunky, they didn't have everything right. Over a couple patches, they fixed it. Back when PUBG first came out, it was horrible. Barely ran, you couldn't do anything. Like, it was so laggy, you could barely get over 60 frames at all in that game, maybe even 40 frames on high-end stuff. After a couple patches, it got better. Fortnite, you know, I played PUBG until then, and it broke me down, and I was getting really irritated with the errors. Come to Fortnite, I've been playing the last month and a half straight. There's not any problems that I have a problem with. I enjoy this game way more because of it. And shooting themselves in the foot on the actual engine, like, they were not trying to steal your money. What's the problem? You don't own Battle Royale. You don't own that game mode. You can't do that. I mean, do you think you see Counter-Strike bitching at Call of Duty for Search and Destroy? That's Counter-Strike's competitive element. Or not Search and Destroy, or it might be, yeah, whatever it's called.
It is Search and Destroy.
On there.
Yeah.
But planting the bomb and defusing, they can't get pissed off at Rainbow Six Siege. That's their core element. Yeah, but you can't steal that game mode. You can't own it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then it comes across as arrogance because, you know, you already have the game that is doing the best. You know, it's the most successful game on stream. It pretty much, it took over Twitch. It still takes over Twitch. It's taken over YouTube. Like, the success of PUBG is unknown no pun intended, but it's totally unknown to the gaming realm. We've never seen a game be this popular. And for me, it's even more so be this popular while being so objectively bad. The game is legitimately bad right now. It has the potential, and when it works, it's great, but if you had to go for the overall experience, the game is bad. And then for you guys to come out, and it was just so arrogant to be like, to like just accuse Epic Games of trying to steal from them or whatever. It was just like, come on, God, you can't be that far up your own ass. You can't let that kind of success get to you. Like, it's not like when Counter-Strike got big a couple of years back that they started looking at other games. Like, they didn't look at Rainbow Six Siege when it got announced. It was like, you guys are doing something similar to us. That's not okay. How dare you? Like, that's just, it's so close-minded, and I think that the game would be so much further along if they still had the help of Epic Games, who clearly understand the engine much better than they do.
Yeah, I didn't even fathom that they probably lost dropped off connections with them. They're just letting them use the engine and not even helping them. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, if you're developing a game, even when Fortnite announced
you threatened to sue
Royale,
me, screw you. Yeah, basically, I'm not gonna help you.
The worst part is when they announced the Fortnite Battle Royale, they were like, we really like PUBG. PUBG's really awesome, and it inspired us to create this game. It's like, how do you look at that and be like, okay, yeah, they're clearly copying us. We need to move in. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, get the lawyer. For what? They didn't do anything to jeopardize your IP. They didn't do anything to jeopardize your money. They're not stealing any money from you. It's a free game they offered already. It's free. The only money there is that they make off that game is if you buy V-Bucks to buy digital items from them. And it's just pixels. Has nothing to do with gameplay at all, other than you can dance maybe, or you can glide in on something fancy, or you can look goofy. Like, oh well. But I put more money into that game being free than I've ever put into PUBG. I put, what, $5 or $10 in for crates? I was like, ooh, over it.
Yeah, because I mean, let's be real. I think most of the gaming communities burn out on loot boxes. Like, I know I've played so much Counter-Strike the last, 5 years that I am burnt out on loot boxes. And the fact that, this is a totally different discussion, but like the loot box thing is like, it's such dangerous territory for how easily it can suddenly become this thing that's detrimental to the game as a whole. That, people are already abusing PUBG skins with like the gambling sites, and who knows if that's going to have an influence on the competitive side of the game. And when you look at Fortnite, there's no cases. You get the awesome aesthetics that they're coming up with, the cool art style that they're using to do all these weird and wacky things. Like, you're not going to see anyone in PUBG running around with a goddamn pickaxe that's a harpoon with a goddamn shark on it, jiggle boning around, chopping down trees. That ain't going to happen. Fortnite takes itself so unseriously that the game can be classified as its own meme, and it's still a great game to play beyond that. It's awesome.
And that's the beauty of it. It has a humor, a whole entire side of the game, and they know it and they embrace it. And that's one of the things I enjoy it. I can build a base around somebody, drop a trap in there, and kill him with it. I can boogie bomb somebody and make him dance, and my teammate can shoot him and kill him. I can just sit there and dab on somebody and BM, yeah, it's BM, whatever you want to call it. But I can sit there and throw a dab or dance on somebody I killed or knocked with some goofy way or nade or whatever. I can have a lot more fun with the game itself than I can PUBG. PUBG, what, I can crouch spam / teabag them? Cool. I mean, that's the classic. Everybody loves it. But Fortnite takes itself, like you said, unserious at the same time, but it knows it needs to have its core shooting element game solid, and it's done a good job. Except Bloom aside.
Yeah, and it's done a great job at that. And then you add on this this creativity to how do you approach gunfights with the build system. I think that like the way they've executed the building in this game is so seamless, because the entirety of the environment is destructible. If you see a build, if you wanted to, you could just level the entire map. That's awesome.
Yeah, everything but mountains basically, and a couple elements to the game itself. That's it. You can destroy everything if you need to get it and build it. You want to just get it out of your way if somebody's hiding behind a tree, there you go. Yeah,
and then and it works so seamlessly in combat that I think, it adds such an awesome element to the end game, because there's so many different ways you can approach it. You can just build the mega base. You could push into someone's base. If with like the new minigun, Now mega bases beware, because I'll just knock that goddamn motherfucker down in half a second. Like, and then like they've approached things with the community so well, because I believe when people discovered rocket riding, it was probably a bug, and they chose to just keep it in the game. So now you can have some dude riding a rocket into battle, spraying his minigun everywhere, and you look at that and you're like, okay, how is that not fun, right? It's hard not to have a good time in Fortnite to some basic level, just because of how wacky it can be at times.
Oh, 100%. Like, they actually have the fun little elements, and they actually, you know, they understand it. You know, sometimes it gets a little much, they'll take them out. Like, the winter event's over, they got rid of the extra snowball grenade launchers. They're gone. They have little events to have little fun with it. They don't keep it there. So some people get annoyed and bored with it. It's gone. The event's over with. You know, you had fun with it. We enjoyed it. Have fun.
Yep, and that's one thing we totally missed out on. The limited time modes they bring in do a great job of breaking up the monotony of just playing Battle Royale all the time. And I think it's a pretty happy medium between having alternate game modes and not. Because you still have, it's still the standard Battle Royale, but it's different rule sets. You know, like sometimes it's only silenced weapons, or only explosive weapons, or like right now it's snipers and revolvers only. And these do fantastic jobs at just breaking up the monotony and changing things up and forcing you to approach the game differently. And it's also a great environment for testing, and they're going to be using the limited time modes to test out new shooting models and like the new weapon systems. Which is just like, that's such a fantastic idea. Like, I wouldn't have thought that. I thought they would need like a test server to try and execute on these things. But no, they already have the necessary things in the game to do it, which is just like, once again, an awesome idea they're executing on, like, right now.
Yeah, they have the player base to be their beta testers. Here, test it. They're probably doing things when they open up those little modes. They have something they probably enabled, or they're testing out or trying out, so they can get feedback and see how it works and how it's stable. That's why there's a lot of errors, and that's why there's no progression, I think, on your daily events, because they don't want something that they might have messed up on affecting your daily progress to what you are grinding for, that you paid for in the past, or even if you don't have the past, what you're grinding for on that. I honestly think they do that for a reason, to test things and elements that they want to change and add or bring to the game or fix. And I think it's a great idea. You have the player base already doing it. Let them try it out. If they don't want to, they don't have to.
Yeah. I think ultimately what this discussion boils down to is whether you want to spend the $30 on a game that I think eventually will be worth the amount of praise it gets. I think eventually PUBG will get there and will be an insanely fun game. But if I had to go out right now and just save that $30, or maybe I wanted to spend it on something else, I would just start playing Fortnite and buy some skins and just have fun with it. Because at least right now, and especially if you're a console player, if you're sitting here on console, you want to get into Battle Royale, I think it's no question Fortnite is the better game to start playing. But on PC, right now, I would play Fortnite way more than I would play PUBG, and I think that's going to be this way for a while.
Oh, agreed. I really enjoy it. And the one other thing that's huge, it's cross-platform. I can go ahead and play with my buddy on PlayStation. I'm not sure about the Xbox. I still question that one, because, you know, they are stingy with it. For instance, PUBG is on Xbox and PC. They can't play with each other.
Right.
But I can go ahead and hop in and play with my buddy that's playing on PlayStation, as long as we're friends on Epic Games, which you can log in on the browsers and just be friends. And then we can go in game with each other, no problem. Via Discord, through the phone, we can chat. Not through the PlayStation Network, not through Fortnite's forced service at all. We can choose to do that. You don't have to, and they're not limiting yourself. And once again, on a free game mode, they enabled that. Another free service or option you could do. Like, what other games besides Rocket League enable you to do cross-platform? And that's a game you have to pay for.
And it's not like, because of how the game is set up, it's not like if there was like cross-platform, there was like a console version of like a game like Counter-Strike, it wouldn't be worth it because you'd be at such an inherent disadvantage. A lot of how Fortnite's designed equals out the differences in like aiming ability that comes from having mouse and keyboard versus controller, and you can nuance your way to win against people who have the, you know, whatever subjective better hardware or setup or whatever, you know. So cross-platform play works really well in Fortnite, and it's awesome because it just totally opens up the amount of people playing the game.
Yeah, mouse and keyboard will still have a little bit of advantage as far as maneuverability and controllability over the game. But I mean, as a mouse and keyboard player, I've been dicked on and shot down by many controller players, no problem. Like, it's not an issue. I mean, I don't see them complaining. I don't hear them yelling at me. Probably because I've muted. But still, I don't hear them bitching and complaining. But I've been shot and killed and lost many games to controller players. I may have a slight tactical advantage, but it's still not much, especially when I'm playing in squads or competing together with people on it already. You have a teammate that's going to shoot me, two of you shoot me at the same time, I'm dead anyways.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to say. I think right now Fortnite is definitely the superior game. And that's where I'm gonna leave that.
Definitely my main game for BRs right now. Islands of Night I'm testing when it's open and having fun with it, but definitely a main solid game is going to be Fortnite overall for its playability and consistency.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the most user friendly. It fundamentally works the best, and when it comes down to it, I think I'm gonna walk away laughing my ass off over the funny shit you can do in Fortnite than being, you know, like pissed or, you know, being just slightly pissed off when I die in the last circle in PUBG because some dude's hiding in a bush and snipes me with an AWM. So
exactly. At the end of the day, even if we lose, we have some humor out of it and have some fun. And if you want to take the game serious, you really want to be serious, go compete. Go play Counter-Strike and compete. There's not much you can do in esports right now for PUBG. There's a few events that they're doing. Some people host some stuff. Yeah, try it out. If you want to be competitive and want to take it serious, actually go compete. If you want to play BR and have some fun, go play some Fortnite.
Yep. And yeah, I have nothing else to say. Alright guys, so this is gonna be the end of this discussion. Real quick, I want to just open up for Furly here to plug his shit. You can find him over on Twitch. So where can they find you at?
On Twitch, I stream pretty regularly, most consistently on Friday and Saturday nights, which is guaranteed around 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. Other nights are kind of scattered at Furly707.
Awesome. I'll leave a link down to his Twitter and his Twitch down below. Also, he is on YouTube. I actually did some editing for him, helped him make a little highlight, some of his stream highlights up until this point, and you can also check that out. You can follow me on Twitter, keep up to date with what's going on the channel. Nerds Rise has been doing great the last couple weeks. We've got some great content coming out from Andrew and Jesse as well, so keep an eye out for that. You can find the link to my last video at the end card as well as a couple other videos on the channel. Anyways, my name is Jack, that's Furly. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.